This is a match between Vidith and Richard Rapport in the final qualification of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Paris tournament. The winner of this match will join the 7 other players who have already secured their spots in the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Paris tournament lineup. Let's dive into the game.
Not normal chess, it's not traditional chess, but it's close. It's 6 of the 8 pieces starting on their normal squares. It's only the rook on c1 and the bishop on a1 that have been shuffled, switched. David, this means the players, it's surely going to transpose to a normal looking type of opening with fianchettos on the cards. Because there might even be some quick gambits and quick attacks. So yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah.
f4, let's see it.
I actually had f4, f5, e4 in a game long ago when I was in the 1500s. My opponent tried to play the symmetrical bird, and I got a crushing position immediately. Won the game pretty straightforwardly with basically a Fromm's gambit with your pawn on f4, so you can break with f5, and it's crushing. If black wants to play a symmetrical bird, they should play f4 e6 or f4 b6, and then bishop b7, and then later f5, a move or two later. So
heading towards that Sicilian, maybe. We did predict this. e4, b6, and the white knight defends. This could transpose to some Sicilians.
Honestly, I'm surprised to see Vidith thinking so long here. I feel like c5 is absolutely necessary, super important move. My feeling is it's a little bit finicky, and that's why I feel like there's almost a strategic imperative to play c5 here, because if you don't play c5 and white plays d4, now you can never play c5 anymore because white will play d5. And it's basically just like a strategic advantage. Now becomes bishop b4 and knight b5. Freewheeling knight from Rapport. Unclear. But we get development.
Yeah, development instead, knight c6. Maybe not the best, not a tempo gainer. Now, white does have the option of playing moves like, I was going to say a3, b4, or in this case, c3. c3 is surprising to me, David, because bishop on a1 is really screaming now.
So clearly, I'm not in Richard's mind at this moment because I didn't realize he would want to take it this direction.
Yeah. And he's offering to double his own pawns after the move a6. The white knight only has 1 retreat square on a3. That could be captured, but it would open up the bishop on a1 potentially. Oh, yeah. Well, he's offering it.
Goes for it.
That's how commentary works, right, David? Like, we suggest something, we're like, oh, it looks a bit dubious, and then of course it lands on the board 1 second later.
Queen a4. I mean, I'm not predicting anything this game. After long thought, we get a very controversial move. King f8, getting off that diagonal.
I mean, maybe he just realized that castling in freestyle chess is hard, so why castle, why bother? But, I mean, here castling is pretty straightforward, you would think. Okay.
My friend Jesse insists that he can't figure out how to castle in freestyle. He's a grandmaster, right? He says it's too hard. Like, he can't figure out.
In regular chess, that's the trick. That's the secret. So often you zoom across half the board or more, but you always end up on g1 or c1 with the white king, and g8, c8 with the black king.
Yeah. Here we got one move that makes sense to me, David. So I'm finally, some point that I can lean on. Black's king is not castling, so as white, I would want to trade pawns to potentially open the center versus playing an advanced French where there's more time for them to rearrange the pieces and deal with the king. So this move makes sense to me. Then he decides queen e4 could be annoying. He develops a bishop while preventing it. At last. Now, also looking towards the future, I'm definitely going to want to play c4 at some point in this game to activate the bishop on a1.
Well, activating that bishop somehow, it will force the white queen to maybe return first. He plays c4 instantly. Wow, he's really going all in here.
Vidith starting to think too long about this choice here. Finally, queen d7.
Yeah.
But he's down 5 minutes on the clock now. That's a third of his time.
Okay, what to do now? Are there tricks in the position? Like,
castling would be standard.
Yeah, knight f6, I'm guessing. There we go.
Knight f6.
Anytime
Vidit, if you could castle, this would be the one game that looked like standard chess instead of freestyle, but you just had to go king f8. I mean, as black here, I know it's Richard thinking, but as black here, would you be looking at g6, king g7, or h6 and somehow putting the king on h7 despite the bishop on d3, or would you just try to play the game with your king here, maybe play h5, h4 to develop your rook?
Some kind of chaos button. That's a sacrifice.
Yeah, he has, but it's still very important wisdom from David Howell here, saying maybe keep the pawns on f7 and g7 as a shelter for the king, and find some other way to get use out of your rook rather than making some weaknesses in the hopes that you're organizing the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I guess h7 is covered as an escape kind of route for the black king, and g7 not entirely safe with the sniper on a1. So he's he could collapse very quickly if he's not careful. Knight b4, good move.
Richard thought quite a while on this choice, d5, to explode the game and give the pawn rather than first trying to improve the bishop or put a rook on e1, right? He just goes for the action. Easy life for white.
Piece up, yeah. But he doesn't find this resource d6. Again, it's kind of the type of thing that's easy to explain once you've seen it, but the blue arrow gave us a helping hand there. Richard doesn't have that kind of nudge, so he plays bishop c4. Now this move you mentioned, a6. Now he needs something very concrete, otherwise he's just going to be pawn down at very best, maybe even a piece down.
e5 thrown in, okay. If pawn takes knight, luckily can take this queen with check.
Yeah.
So
very important detail. That begs the question, I'm assuming the black queen needs to move. Why not queen f5, attacking both knights? Investment.
I didn't even take two pieces. One piece, okay.
One piece. I mean, okay, it doesn't happen though. Queen f5, the other logical move. Also probably just very strong.
Yeah, and to me, taking with the bishop, knight takes d6, we let one of white's pieces come out of its dangerous situation. So d6, pawn takes d6, looks pretty simple.
Yeah, and something's happening on f7, but I don't think black cares so much. And Vidit looks really confused on the camera. I think he's wondering if his opponent is bluffing. It does look that way. Okay, so let's say we take on c4 with the pawn. Let's try and keep things simple. Like, what is white doing? Knight takes h8.
Suppose take the rook rather than let the knight get trapped.
Yeah. So we have a draw with bishop takes g2 if we get scared. But
but he's got to win this game, right? It's just the start of the match, and he's got his opportunity.
Yeah. I like to have a safety net, especially against the top guys. That's why I don't beat them so often.
Really? In this good a position?
No,
checking your safety net.
I wouldn't play it. I think I would just like the option.
He's done something. Let's see what he's done. Rook takes c4.
Okay. It's a bit odd. I would have wanted to keep the rooks on somehow. Again, it was your friend Jesse who taught me that normally if you have a bunch of minor pieces, they are well complemented by a rook.
Yeah.
Ooh. d5.
d5. f3.
f3. He's going to take with his queen on c4, I think. I have a feeling he really wants to take with the queen, though. He wants to get the queens off on c4. Trap that knight in the corner. Oh, of course. Good call. You got it. Yeah. You know him better than me.
Hey, if we each call different things, one of us will be right.
Those were the two most logical moves.
Yep. Two pieces hanging.
Rook c7 played. Rook c8, I was going to say, surely, to get that rook off. Rook c1. Trade, rook c1, then b3. Ooh. But now rook takes rook. And then a check, and then knight d5.
Killer, but... Trade.
Vidit will spot this. If it's winning.
Yeah. Knight d5 covering queen f4. There's no move for white after that.
Queen takes d6 is the only one to think about, but Rapport immediately shakes his head. He did not spot that. Queen takes d6, just queen d2. Yeah. Instead,
he goes for this one more complication, the rook on c7, and it gets knocked out.
yeah, queen d2 check here though looks, or queen d4 check as well. But now queen g5, get out of the pin on the d file, and then you can just take on c7 or queen e1, and the rook is dropping next move.
Yeah. So now black is up a piece for nothing, and that will end things.
Oh,
queen h4 mate. Nice detail.
Even better. Vidith checkmates Richard Rapport.
That was the first game, and Vidith only needs a draw in the second game to qualify for the main event of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Paris tournament. Let's go to the game 2.
Trying to play Italians. He does start with e4, Vidith. Good call. And Sicilian. Oh, that's brave. That pawn is loose. That
what on earth? White wants to play f4, and you hand the tempo on a platter. They had 3 minutes to look at this position, so this wasn't just like a slip of the tongue from Richard. Like he was ready to play this move. flexing the graphics, and a tame response from Vidith. I would say f4 would have been standard and f3 was tame. Even though there's nothing on the board that would obviously tell us that that's what's going on, the eval bar accepts Vidith's opening of the game without any complaints, and boom, the queen comes into the center, not the rook. I expected this. And what I want to say is, like, if you look at this position right before he plays d4 even, and ask yourself, why is this so good? I feel like the side that's making pawn moves that give space to the queen versus the side with the queen still tucked in, I feel like that might be a huge part of the story and the evaluation.
100% agree. And it's also about castling, right? Like white's king, first of all, is pretty safe behind a wall of pawns a long way. And I just don't see that happening. Okay, g5 is the start.
It means a lot more pawn moves.
Yeah, slow.
If he played g6, the knight would be in trouble. But if he plays g5, how attractive is it still to castle over there?
True. You can't even play bishop g7. You can't play knight g6 because you're hanging the g5 pawn now.
For white, I can give you 3 answers in 3 seconds. For black, I'm going to ask you to give me like half an hour to figure out what I want to do.
Yeah, queen g6 crossed my mind as well, just to play bishop g7. But now the black knight in the corner, not a happy bunny.
This way, depends. If I can get black to play e6 early on with this knight g3 move, then it clarifies a little bit that I want to go after this pawn. I might double rooks faster. Might even leave the bishops where they are. Play rook d2, castles queenside, threatening knight b5. Gonna peace out.
Yeah. Okay, he gains a tempo, hitting this black pawn. And time to defend it or push it. Okay, he defends it.
Paying another heavy price.
Slow and steady.
Rapport with another little pawn move.
Okay, he plays it. Bishop d3, very healthy move. Knight e5 before the e pawn steps forward. Yeah, why the hesitation? Okay, whoa. I mean, he keeps moving the same piece twice in the opening.
He keeps giving tempi, but now d5 and f5 are basically outposts because the queen's got no way to get out of the way of the e pawn.
Okay, I mean, knight d5 is, I mean, it plays itself, right? Knight f5, maybe he's just choosing one or the other. Knight f5 stops the black dark square bishop from developing, but a bit less stable that knight. Instantly, through gritted teeth, give up the exchange or a pawn. Yeah, it's never the first resort. Oh wow, king b8. He's committed. That rook on a8 is grimacing as much as you, David. That is
I assume, David, that the players can't see our faces, so I don't have to keep a poker face, right? And I'm just wondering whether to be precious about my bishop or just sort of keep rolling and let black trade it as Vidith decides to make use of it.
Yeah, he answers the question for you. Great call. I was probably just going to leave it on d3. I wouldn't have been too afraid of any captures, but yeah, it is a fine line. If he finds a way to increase his advantage over the next half dozen moves, then I think it's time well spent. But yeah, if he doesn't quite make a breakthrough, if Rapport continues to wriggle and survive for the next 5-10 moves, then maybe Vidith will look back at this thinking, oh, I should have just trusted myself.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
The idea of castling is also okay with me.
Yeah.
Though it does sort of tell black to take their shot with g4 or h5, h4.
Yeah, it's a bit of a long shot, that one. But,
Yeah.
e6 not a threat because of knight to b4, we should mention. But okay, he moves the bishop yet again. That's very concrete, attacking the e7 pawn indirectly.
Okay.
Oh,
we have a move.
He does take on c3.
Bishop takes c3, queen c3, queen e6. They're playing down this exact line, folks. Down this exact line. So knight to d4 is a possible move. And then what did you think black would do? I mean, they would lose a pawn, right?
Minimum. Bishop takes
so
c6.
You're taking the b7 pawn instead of the h6 pawn. That's very focused of you. I like it.
I've changed. What can I say? Maybe what you said yesterday was correct. Not all pawns are equal. It was like that Indian dominion has begun, as you said, and Vidith even smiling. It looks like knight d4 played, Richard.
Oh no, he's enjoying it too much. He's enjoying it too much. Our goal is to win the pawn on c6, and you can take on c6 with check if black took back with pawn or bishop, so there's no time for the queen trade.
Can't see a knockout there. Bishop takes... Oh, knight b4.
Keeping the c6 square in view. He had to calculate a5 to play this move.
Or maybe a5, queen b3. Is that... Oof.
Queen scores a check by surprise on the side. But
knight a6 is the threat. a5. Maybe he'll even come back now. Knight d5 and then knight b6. Knight e5.
Right, but now a5 loses horrendously to knight d5, knight b6.
Yeah.
So knight e5 still trying to win control of the c6 square somehow, and it defends the bishop, so it maybe diffuses your checkmate plan here, right, where the king gets chased, and now finally d7 would be defended, but maybe with queen a5, white can make the whole thing work anyway.
Yeah, queen a5 minimum, you take on a8 and laugh your way to the bank.
Right. I mean, my dream here was rook d3.
This has all happened.
And resignation has come in as we're analyzing the situation.
It wasn't even resignation. He just repeated the moves that Vidith. He actually forced a draw by repetition. He gave the checks. He clinched the match. He gets 1.5 out of the 2. And it's a win for the Indian Grandmaster. Richard Rapport, a sigh there.
With this win, Vidith will become the 12th player in the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Paris tournament.